Hello, my name is Franklin. Today I'm presenting our paper, A Contextual Inquiry of People with Vision Impairments in Cooking. Co-authors are Michael Liu, Shaun, Kane, and Patrick Carrington. Prior research has shown that cooking-related tasks contain a lot of visual information and cues, which can create barriers for people with vision impairments. Due to these barriers, many people with vision impairments prefer eating out at restaurants, getting takeout, and preparing frozen food, which can be calorie-rich and more likely have poor nutritional value. Here I'm showing the champion of the third season of MasterChef, Christine Han, who lost her vision 20 years ago. She also highlighted the importance of cooking and meal preparation for people with vision impairments. In the meanwhile, she also showed that blind people can cook professionally and considering cooking as a hobby by given the barriers from accessing visual information. According to past literature, cooking activities involves many tasks that brings barriers to people with vision impairments, such as using different tools, ensuring food hygiene, measuring, and checking food doneness. It is important to explore how to reduce barriers for people with vision impairments in these tasks. Ultimately, most of these challenges result from a lack of access to object information. There has been existing research and product that leverage AI to capture object information. Here is a demo to show one of the app to recognize kitchen objects in the fridge.
Shelf. Bottled and jarred packaged goods. Shelf with text. Coffee HTXDIADINBONWNOII. Shelf. Bottled and jarred packaged goods. Bottled and jarred packaged goods. Text.
After we showed the demo, we found that there are clear improvements need to be done for such vision systems. What we do not know is how people with vision impairments use objects in the kitchen and what information of the object is useful. If we take the jar from the demo video as an example, what is in the jar? What are other questions that blind people might want to know about the jar? What about the description could be better? That is why we conduct a contextual inquiry study, especially in regards to the objects that they use. There are three research questions that we aim to explore. What contextual information about objects is important to people with vision impairments during cooking? What techniques and strategies do blind people use to non-visually gather and utilize information about objects during cooking and food preparation tasks? And what are the most effective methods for conveying necessary contextual information about objects at the right times and in the right ways? Contextual inquiry is a type of ethnographic field study that involves in-depth observation and interviews for a small sample of users to gain a robust understanding of work practices and behaviors. We conducted contextual inquiry study with 12 participants with vision impairments in their kitchens in person. Here is an example of the in-person contextual inquiry where we asked our participants to naturally make a meal based on their food availability without other people's assistance. And our researcher observed the whole process. In our contextual inquiry study, we first asked our participants to naturally make a dish based on whatever they have in their home. No further purchases required. After making the dish, we then asked our participants to perform specific cooking-related activities, such as finding objects. Finally, we conducted semi-structured interviews to further explore their perceptions about objects' contextual information, as well as information communication. During the contextual inquiry study, we set up a chest-mounted camera to capture the egocentric view and a stationary camera to capture from the side view. The contextual inquiry was fully recorded and stored for analysis. Here are demonstrations of the kitchen spaces of the contextual inquiry that ranges from different spatial layouts and object density. As you can see, the top left figure indicates the kitchen space with wide spatial layout and low object density. and the bottom right one shows the narrow spatial layout and high object density. For more details about the contextual inquiry settings, please refer to our paper. Here are the cuisines that our participants made without human assistance based on what they have in their fridge. This shows a representation of making different types of dishes in the contextual inquiry. From analyzing the contextual inquiry recordings, we first extracted the type of contextual information of objects that are important to people with vision impairments. Based on our observation, there are different information about an object that people want to acquire. We analyzed all of them and created the attribute taxonomy of objects that include 5 primary attributes, 2 secondary attributes, and 1 application-specific attribute. The 5 primary attributes include relative position, orientation relative to other reference point, proximity information about grouping of objects relative to others, similarity and duplicates, and internal state information, such as cleanness, freshness, and foodiness. These are the core contextual information that people with vision impairments prefer to acquire about an object in the kitchen. We recommend vision app developers leverage these attributes as considerations when describing an object to a person with vision impairments. Specifically, regarding the position attribute, we found our participants prefer having relative position instead of absolute position when describing where the object locates. This figure shows a demo of describing the chopped green pepper stored in a metal bowl that is on the cutting board. As P5 said, to determine the location of the item I'm searching for, I simply require a relative position in relation to a reference point in my kitchen, such as near my gas range or my fridge. Next, internal state is very important regarding cleanness, freshness, and foodiness. This figure shows that one of our participants cooked the chopped vegetables with stickers on. Pina emphasized on the internal state. It is impossible for me to determine if vegetables are clean or not during the washing process. Consequently, I often find myself repeatedly washing them to ensure their absolute cleanliness. To show how important using our attribute taxonomy to describe an object, let's use one of the figures that we captured from the contextual inquiry as an example. For sighted people, when we describe the right bottle, we might just say the large bottle with yellow top on the counter to describe the bottle on the right. Vision app might even just describe it as a bottle with a lid. However, this is not enough to people with vision impairments. To describe with our metrics, this is a bottle on the counter along with other sauces and seasonings that is facing up and has the largest size among other bottles and kits. And this bottle has little dark liquid inside. Next, we'll talk about the process of obtaining these contextual information. To obtain internal state information, we found our participants leverage multisensory approaches by incorporating touch, sound, and smell. This figure shows P10 is trying to use his hand to feel the side of the wok to gauge the temperature. On the other hand, our participants mentioned the approach of leveraging sound to indicate object status as well, such as knowing if the water has boiled. P11 said, I prefer using sound-based assessments, such as checking if the water has boiled. But sometimes the differences in sound characteristics can be quite subtle, which is difficult to specify with my exhaust fan on. Beyond using multisensory approach, we also found that our participants intentionally create context by choosing different shapes of object to easily identify them. Another approach is to optimize cooking procedures, such as put frequently used object close to the gas range or reduce precision needs while cooking by using the kitchen sink to temporarily store the carrot peels. Next, we talk about how a system should communicate the contextual information and relative design considerations. First of all, when referring to the location reference, our participants highlighted the importance of having stationary and unique references to acquire more accurate information. P4 commented, I typically say that the salt is on the left-hand side of the gas range, or the oyster sauce is on the windsill. I prefer not to know if my oyster sauce is close to my sugar because other people might place it in different spots. Next, P2 highlighted the importance of limiting verbosity of the information. I don't want the system to constantly provide verbal updates for every new object it encounters. It should provide contextual information thoughtfully. When presenting the information, we found both speech and non-speech audio feedback were preferred for different contexts. P10 said, I prefer nonverbal sounds over human voice notifications as they were less disruptive while I'm cooking. And if I'm in the middle of cooking and listening to a lecture, having a human voice as a notification can disrupt my experience. Last but not the least, being able to access the information remotely and persistently could contribute to scenarios like going to grocery shopping or have some other people use the space. P5 further commented on this. I'm unsure if I can always have the tracking system facing the exact objects or reference points. Therefore, I want the system to be capable of providing me with contextual information even when I'm not directly facing it. Well, let's move to discussion and future directions. We talked about the 8 attributes of kitchen objects that are important to people with vision impairments in the kitchen. It is essential and beneficial for future research and vision apps to embed more of our contextual information into existing object detection or segmentation models. Next, we found that our participants prefer leveraging unique containers to differentiate different objects, as well as using tactile markers to label objects. This brings opportunities to embed low-cost sensors to track the contextual attributes of objects to the tactile markers, such as location and object status. Then to reduce the effort of explicitly tracking objects, it is important to explore implicit tracking methods as well as databases that support remote access of the information while in the grocery store. Finally, given cooking require multisensory approaches for blind people, when develop any types of sensing technology, future research should widely consider and explore the bandwidth of different modalities and enable multimodal access and interactions. Thanks for listening. For more details, please read our paper.